today I have our baby, Sydney, in the room with us, and we are going to talk about all things mom and daughter. We're going to talk about just things as a daughter that are important to learn from their mamas, and things that she thinks that she wishes that she learned more of, and relationships and how important as mother-daughter relationships are. So welcome,
Perfect.
Sid.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, so first of all, we're very blessed. We're very lucky, as you all know, that we're very close as a family, and it's such a blessing. And we get to not only be a great family and love each other, but get to work alongside with our daughters too. So it's kind of this extra little package for us. So as a child growing up,
Yes.
A young girl growing up,
Yes.
what were some of the important things that like you got to learn from me as a mom?
It's a great question. I would say first, inclusivity was definitely at the forefront of things that you had taught me and my younger sister. And I think that manifested itself in a lot of different ways. So I would say one, as it relates to friends specifically, you were always an open door policy person. No one should feel left out. Everybody should always be included. Even if, at times when friendships ebbed and flowed, it was always good just to have everybody feel as if they were included, and then they can make the choice if they wanted to participate or come or not, but you'd have never wanted them to feel left out from me or Sophie. And so I think that was something that was really important that I think has shaped who Soph and I are at this point in our lives, and that was something that you taught us at a really, really young age, which I think is an awesome trait to still have. So inclusivity is definitely one. And then I would also say, another one from a very young age is the confidence of just being a girl. Being a girl is really hard in a lot of different ways. Being a boy is also very hard. Being anybody's very hard. But being a girl is very hard. Girls tend to be mean and pick on each other in a way to make themselves feel better. And you were always one to remind us of that and then make sure that we knew that we are beautiful, we are smart, we are awesome, we are strong, we are leaders, we are everything that you have still told us to this day, the cutest, smartest kids in the history of the entire world, ever. And I think that you have said that to us since the day we entered Earth, and I think that that's been amazing for our self-confidence and the way that we hopefully boost other girls' confidence. So I think that those two things specifically have been things that you've implemented into our lives from a very young age that we are very grateful for and still use today.
Those are really important things. So the inclusivity, though, that did become a little bit of a problem as later years took place.
Yes.
Because, and you can explain to people how that worked, but because of my philosophies and no person left behind, it didn't help when you were treated by certain ways, and I still wanted those people included.
Yeah, I would say, that's something that when I was younger was definitely hard. Like if I had a 4th grade fight with a friend, which retrospectively now, like 15 years later, is irrelevant, but in the moment it was a big deal. And you were like, you would always want us to give them the benefit of the doubt, which was really nice. And even when the birthday parties rolled around and we were like, they were rude to us, we don't want them, you were like, it's better to invite them and let them choose if they're going to come or not. And that was something that honestly, in the moment sucked because we were like, they were rude. Why do we want them at our birthday party? But then it made a difference because we, looking back, have very minimal, I can speak for myself, I have very minimal friendships that have ended at all, one, since I was little, or two, have any bad blood or animosity, like later in life, which I think is unbelievable. Obviously, naturally, friends drift apart, but I don't think we had any significant fallouts or enemies made when I was young that came from intentionally leaving people out or intentionally hurting people's feelings. So in the moment, it was hard to kind of see both sides when we were younger, but I'm really, really grateful for that. And also, balancing as other people's friendships changed and wanted to make sure that when you have a party as a young person and you invite everybody at your party might not get along either. And so making sure that you can kind of talk to everybody in the room, even from a young age, recognizing that one person at your birthday party might not be friends with another person at your birthday party, and while you're removed from their drama, you did put them in the same room together, so you have to make sure everybody tries to feel comfortable in that setting, and that was something that we were taught at a young age. even though it was kind of hard at sometimes when we were younger to see that, but as we're older, it definitely makes sense now.
Well, yeah, and I remember at the birthday parties when that would happen, you'd say, well, now I've got to figure out how to, like, watch over everybody to make sure that they're comfortable because this person doesn't get along and this person doesn't get along. So it has a lot of pros.
Definitely.
But in the moment, I see now that it also has it had a lot of cons too. Because I didn't want to necessarily choose your friendships for you either.
Right. And it was a good thing and a bad thing, but the parents are also still very good friends. Yes. And so then there's the added layer of you don't want to hurt the parents in the process of not including the kids, even if kids aren't as close anymore. So definitely as we got older, that was easier to navigate. But when we were younger, it really was try to like keep an open mind and invite as many people as you can, work the room how you can being a young girl, and like talk to everybody so they feel comfortable and recognize that like you're not a part of everybody's drama. You're just, and it sucks that some people have it, but you're just there to hopefully make everybody feel as welcome as they can.
Self-confidence is incredibly important for anybody to go into any situation. And I think that it's important that you always show your kids how important they are so that when they walk into situations, they feel comfortable in their own skin. What would you say were some of the challenges, if you had any, as far as building that self-confidence for yourself and what that looks like?
I would say one thing I always have remembered is I wanted to be a dancer so bad. And I fortunately had the chance to dance for a lot of my life, but I was not a very good dancer when I first started. You'll say I was really good because you're my mom and you're supposed to say that, but I wasn't objectively a very good dancer.
You had to work harder at it.
Right. I had to work harder at it. Sophie, on the other hand, my sister, hated dance and was really good at dance, so I kind of was like, well, that sucks. Like, who gave her that? And so I think that was something, because I was surrounded by so many dancers. Yes. All of my friends were dancers. That was something that I struggled with from the confidence perspective. I was not a ballet girl. I wasn't built like a ballet girl. I'm not like 6 feet tall and like super, super, super tiny, but I always wanted to be a dancer. And so I think that from the self-confidence perspective was hard at times, but it encouraged me to work really hard. And then also because of that, you know, you have to have a level of self-confidence when you're in an environment where you're not the greatest and you're not, you know, the owner of that room. And I think that really helped me build my self-confidence and be in uncomfortable situations and work to get to a point where I feel successful at it and sufficient at it. So I would say that was definitely something on the self-confidence side. But other than that, fortunately, I feel like I've been a pretty confident person. Like, I don't think I've had a lot of moments where I have felt, I mean, obviously it ebbs and flows and there are small instances, but I've never really felt like a super insecure and self-conscious person, which I'm very grateful for. But I think a lot of that comes from because when we were little, both you and my dad, and honestly our entire extended family, just spoke really highly of Sophie and I all the time. You know, they work really hard, they're good girls, they're like, when we're 3, you're so beautiful, you love to dance, you're so, like, it was really good for our like inner self-talk. So I think that was just something that always stuck with me, and I'm really grateful for that.
So Sydney had an instance when she was in high school. She was part of the POMS team, and that was a big part of her world. For everyone that doesn't know the story, but like in her senior year, she was bumped out of her POMS team. She was the only senior that was bumped out of her POMS team. The idea behind it is because they wanted her to be the captain of the JV team and to have one senior stay behind and basically do it, and they chose Sid, and that was like a gut-wrenching moment in time for yourself.
Yeah.
How were you with your self-confidence with that, as opposed to just being crushed, you know, because it was a moment of what was going on and your friend group was all moving up and stuff? Did that at any point in time kill your self-confidence?
I would say yes, definitely hurt my self-confidence, because, you know, the root of where I was the most self-conscious and least self-confident was from the inception of wanting to be such a good dancer. Totally. And I think that was just a very full circle where, like, I got to a point where I was able to not only just studio dance, I was on a competitive team with the studio. I was able to compete my first 3 years of high school and be heavily involved in, you know, a choreography leader and a captain of my JV team my sophomore year and junior year. And then I got to a point my senior year where you think you're going to make varsity, you work your way all the way up, and then you don't. And so I think that definitely did take a toll on my self-confidence. However, I will say, and I've never told him this, so Jordan, if you're listening, get excited, but Jordan's my long-term boyfriend, for those who don't know, and I will say it happened to align very well that at the time that I was about to kind of reach my like depths of being really sad and like self-conscious and upset about like entering senior year and just having this loss of identity a little bit, also happened to be where I was like kind of in a groove and relatively well established at that point with my boyfriend, who never really let me think too much about it. And like, I don't know if he thinks about this anymore, but like every moment I would ever bring it up in high school, like if I would cry a little bit, he would be like, they didn't need you. And like, he was just always someone, and my family always would too, but he was someone who just like saw me like beyond being a varsity dancer in high school. And I think that never that girls need validation from boys, but 8 years later being with him, I still see that like that was a really big game changer for me.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I could see that. He is a very big cheerleader for you.
Yes.
No pun intended. What would you say is very important, some of the things that mom-daughter relationships should have?
Open line of communication, I would definitely say. I think some of the scariest relationships between moms and daughters are the ones where the mom is very strict on the daughter, and then the daughter feels too nervous to tell her anything. And then I think that's where you see a lot of like acting out amongst the daughter, and then not feeling that she can go to her mom in a time of need. And I think that's just like a really slippery slope and not a good situation, starting from a young age, then through high school, then if they elect to go to college or whatever their next steps are, just having a barrier in communication, I feel like is a really big detriment. And that's on both sides with the mom and the daughter. And I would also say it comes back to the self-confidence perspective. I think, moms who talk down to their daughters for what they eat, for how they dress, for what they don't eat, for what they don't wear, for the things they're involved in, the things they're not involved in a negative light, kind of, I don't want to say chirping at them, but like a little bit, and making them feel that the choices they're making are negatively reflecting them from their physical self, their mental self, and their emotional self, and their intellectual self, I think is the biggest detriment that a mom could have on a daughter, because daughters are so impressionable from both the mother and the father, or both the parents, whomever it may be. But if the mom and the woman they look up to in their life tells them that they're basically doing everything wrong, they're never going to feel a sense of self-confidence or fulfillment. And so I think that that's something that is critical between a mom and a daughter, just to encourage them. And obviously that doesn't mean to not provide constructive criticism when necessary, and not provide advice when it's necessary. But there's a fine line between doing that and then also making them feel bad about themselves. And I feel like that's something that you've really taught me. I see it now and agree with you in the mentality that like you look at certain things and you're like, I'm really glad so-and-so didn't have a girl. And like, I agree with that, because there are a lot of qualities that like in certain people that if they had a girl, that girl would feel bad and sad and alone and whatever it may be. And so I think that's really important.
Yeah, well, parenting boys and girls, as much as people say I'd like to keep it as even as they possibly can, the truth is there's very different parenting style for
sure.
How you're going to parent a daughter, how you're going to parent a son. You take that to the next level, and there's something about how you parent those children just in general. So not even putting in their gender, you know. So, you have to remember every child's an individual too. So, but there is a clear difference when you see parents with daughters, how they have to parent.
Yep.
It's got to be a very different style than how they parent with a boy. So, okay, safety zone.
Safety zone.
Okay, so has there been like ever a point where any of those things that you thought I made harder for you? No, perfect. Okay, anyway.
Like I mentioned, the inclusivity part was challenging for me
Yes.
when I was younger. Once again, I totally see the benefit, but it was challenging because that does bear a certain level of social anxiety.
Yes,
being
I
a
see that.
fifth grade host of a birthday party and making sure that all your fifth grade girlfriends are not miserable because they hate everybody else in the room. And whether you can control that or not, it's easier. I don't want to say it's easier said than done when you're the parent hosting it than you are the kid who has to like make sure everybody's having fun. But I will say that was challenging. Like objectively, that was hard. And I think that, when I was little also, which has changed significantly as I've gotten older, but when I was little, if I would be in a fight or Sophie would be in a fight with someone and you, because you're such a kind person, want to look at the other person's perspective and be like, well, maybe they had a bad day. Maybe it was taken out of context. Sometimes that could be challenging because, like, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, maybe they were just being a bitch. And maybe they just were not nice. Yes. And that's just it.
And I own that part. I have a very hard time with that. And not because I ever wanted you to think I was team somebody else.
Exactly.
Just because I was more Pollyanna.
Exactly. Like, you were very Switzerland, which is a great thing. It's just sometimes that was hard. Absolutely. Because, like, I'm like, if somebody was rude and, like, my character where I probably didn't antagonize them. And sometimes you would be like, yeah, they were being rude. But a lot of times you were like, but maybe they didn't mean it. But I was like, maybe they didn't, but it still sucked. And so I was sad.
Absolutely.
But I would say, that just comes with the nature of you trying to teach us at a young age to not jump to the worst conclusions, not assume people are bad people, love everybody, care for everybody, be inclusive of everybody. But when you're young, it's hard to see that.
And then, so as a mom, from what you're saying, because you also have a sibling, what do you see are some of the challenges or some of the important things for a mom when they're trying to balance both of their children, to make sure that there's no competitiveness in your children? What are the challenges that, whether you've seen that I've personally done or that you see just from out there being in the world?
One thing that you and my dad did so well was that you let Sophie and I pick what made us happy and then encouraged us in those. Because I played piano, there was a time that we collectively tried to force Sophie to play guitar. That didn't work. And then because there was like a time that, like, I did cheer, Sophie did cheer, vice versa. When Sophie was good at ice skating, everybody was like, you should try ice skating. And like there were times that we tried to make it equal, like really equal. But at the end of the day, like, I like to dance, Sophie liked to horseback ride, and you guys encouraged that and loved that and supported both of those. So I think, that was one thing that we both really are grateful for and has stuck out to us, and that, like, making sure that you really hone in on what your kids love and don't kind of compare apples to oranges because, even twins are most of the time really different. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, just because you're related by blood, most of the time doesn't mean you have most things in common. So I think that that's one thing that's really, really important, is making sure that the children feel celebrated in their differences. And then also, when I was growing up, and my dad knows this now, but the intellectual component is always something that, you were always really, really good about making sure that, like, both Sophie and I felt equal in school. As long as we were trying hard, that's the best we could do. Not that my dad didn't. He was so good about that as well. But Sophie and I had different skill sets in school. And so sometimes there'd be an added layer of pressure on me. Yes. Inadvertently, not with malintention at all, that I had to, like, outperform or really excel academically. And Sophie had her own separate set of challenges with school, but we weren't necessarily deemed equal in that realm. Like, there was a little bit higher of an expectation for me. And so I would say that that's also something, even aside from interest, just trying to keep as even of a playing field as possible. Once again, that didn't really, like, impact me later in life, but it was something I noticed a lot while growing up. Yeah, I would just say trying to find the best ways to keep things equal while celebrating the successes and the interests, and also not crazy, not like not honing in on the failures, but not making one child feel that a failure is okay because they worked really hard and it's fine, and the other one kind of being like, wait, what happened? Like, how did that go wrong for you? Because I think that also could be challenging for kids.
Totally.
Once again, I mean, I felt like growing up, it was pretty even for Soph and I.
Well, that's good. I think it's so important, I had you guys, like, in modeling and tryouts and different things.
Sophie beat me in the pageant.
Sophie beat you in a pageant. Sophie also made it to a movie. However, you were in runway fashion shows and you were in math books and a toy. So, like,
that's
you both had your own share of modeling career. I definitely probably pushed Sophie more than she wanted for her enjoyment, although you loved every minute of it. But I will say my whole thing, and again, not to push you in that world, but my whole thing was I wanted you guys to understand and grow up in a situation where no's are okay. If you walk into something and you do an audition and somebody's like, you're just not that part, it's not a reflection on you. Yeah. It's a reflection on, like, you know what, in this real world, no's just kind of happen. Yeah. Because then when you have those no's, when you finally have that yes, it becomes something even greater. Yeah. So that was a very big, important thing to me. Now, with that being said, I probably, if you're talking to Sophie, maybe not so much you. Sophie was like, I hated every fucking minute of it. I wanted to kill you. But you not necessarily had that. Yeah. I will say that you were always very good about, both of you were very good about, like, if you got that no and the door from your audition, and I would take you sometimes at like 7 o'clock in the morning, we'd go up and we'd go to an audition, you'd have the no and you'd kind of walk out and go, okay, what are we going to do next? Mm-hmm. I always kind of attributed it to the fact that I got you kind of early in life to understand that It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. So tell me one last thing, like, what other challenges, like, from the mother-daughter relationship for the two of us that might have been a challenge that I did on my end?
I would say...
Nothing great. All right. Moving on.
I have to think. That's hard. So there was never anything with school. As I mentioned, like, you were, I don't want to say hands off with school, but you just trusted that I would do school and I would be fine. I would say on the boy front, when I was little, not even little, like before Jordan, like a freshman in high school, you were like, are you okay? Why do boys still have cooties? And in my mind, I was like, I literally got bat mitzvahed like a year ago. Like,
I did do that.
And for those who are unfamiliar with bat mitzvah, you're like 13. So I was like, so the boy pressure when we were younger, and once again, it could have been anyone, but like that when I was little, I
did do that.
You remember that though,
right? 100%.
Yeah.
I totally did that.
You were like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine.
That's what happened when you have parents that start dating when, like, you know, in the womb.
Yeah.
So it didn't help. Yes.
So,
I did do that.
But you own that. You know you did that.
I know I did that. Yeah.
But then Jordan came along and I've never had a question on the boy. So that was good. And I would say, you know, aside from that, there wasn't really anything. I think it was a pretty open relationship, always has been growing up. I think when I went to college, I feel like we got even closer. And I mean, we were always so close, but I read a lot before I went to school that like people become closer even when their parents, even when they're gone, and then after college too, because when you're in the same home as them and you see them all day, every day, not that it becomes like in passing, but you see them all the time. So you're not that your conversations are slightly less intentional. They're more natural. You're just because you're around them. But now, like, I don't think I go a day without talking to you on the phone at least 2 to 3 times if I'm not with you. And sometimes it's for an hour at a time because we just have like so much to talk about.
Or I just send the police.
Or you send the police if you can't get a hold of... Oh, that's the other... Circling back, there was a level and still sometimes is a level... It's not mistrust, I don't think, because I don't think I've ever given you a reason not to trust me.
No.
It's
I
just
trust
like,
you guys. I don't trust the world.
It's just like crazy protectivism, which is so good. But if Sophie and I don't answer the phone...
Would you say it's like helicopter-y or not quite that level?
I don't think it's helicopter-y because you're not weird about like the people we're with or what we're doing where you like need to know like out of fear of like what we're up to. It's not like, oh, are you doing drugs? It's like, are you home safely so I can sleep? And it's that. So it's not helicopter. It's more that your anxiety of Sophie and I transcends very easily. Like if we don't answer within 3 minutes, the odds that we'll get the police called for a well-being check or like a search and seizure is really high, or that we'll get a call from like our grandpa or Jordan or like someone from the office or like, I don't know, the hotel that Sophie and I checked into in Venice, the bellman being like, your parents are looking for you.
I will find a person to find you if I have to. I will call friends that you haven't talked to. They're in my Rolodex from like 14 years ago.
Yeah, so that is anxiety inducing at times because sometimes like you genuinely can't control if you don't have cell service and it's not your fault, but it becomes our problem when we can't.
So that is a thing. I will say that's not just a mother-daughter, that's a me-you.
Yeah, but you've gotten a lot better.
I've been told that I've gotten a lot better.
It used to be really bad.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
But you knew it was really bad.
Oh, no, I fully know it. I will say as a parent and definitely one that is very, very nervous about leaving her children, and if I could reconnect an umbilical cord to my children, I would. That is one thing that I can work on very hard, but I don't think I would ever succeed at. Yeah. So, but that's okay because that's a good problem to have.
Like, think about, I told you this, when I was in Japan, for context, I was in Japan.
She went to Japan. I let her go to Japan. Not fully willingly, by
I went to Japan, and then when I was in Japan, I called you and said, I'm going to Korea in 18 hours.
Yeah, that would fucking blow. That was bad.
And I knew, and I was nervous to tell you from the moment I booked my flight, but I was like, I'm 24, I'm in Asia. Not that she can't catch me, but she can't catch me. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to Korea in like 18 hours. And I know in your mind, you were like, oh my God, what am I going to, like, I don't, but you just said, okay, I love you, have a good time. And I was like, thank you. I was like, did everybody hear that? Thank you so much. So all I had to say, you've gotten way better, because if I would have done that like 5 years ago, it might not have been like that peaceful of a phone call.
Yeah. I was thinking that maybe you could like travel when I'm like 80 or 90.
Right.
And then you just like wait till I'm totally incoherent.
Yeah, and for additional context, when I did go to Japan and Korea, she sent me with 6 air tags that I had to wear on myself.
All over her body.
And so they would beep. You would be in a quiet Zen tea ceremony, and there's 6 air tags that would beep all over my body. So if God forbid one of them went out, there were 5 backups on top of Find My iPhone.
She's just lucky she could put them in pockets, because I was going to shove them up her butt.
But better.
Yeah, better, but better. Is there any advice that you would give to young daughters on their relationships with their mothers specifically?
Be open, be honest, and be trustworthy. I think one of the biggest things that for us, I personally am super grateful for, is when I would tell you something and I said, don't tell anyone. I knew you didn't tell anyone. I knew you didn't use it as table talk with your friends. And I think that goes a long way for girls when they're growing up, because little girls feel like they can't trust anyone because all their friends like to gossip and all their friends like to turn on them. And I think that that's something that establishes a really, really strong relationship early on, because you know that you have a built-in like girl best friend who's a confidant and supports you and like make sure that all your secrets are kept and that they will cheer you on and then help you when you're sad. And I just think that if you could establish that relationship really early, you're going to look up and like, I'm 24 and I think we probably have as good of a relationship you could have as a mother-daughter. And so I would encourage everybody to do exactly what we did, because it's panning out to be great and I think it's the best ever. So
I agree. So I hope this helps everybody. Mother-daughter relationships are the best. I mean, you hope that they're always going to be the best. There's something very special about them. You guys have a great day. City, I love you the most.
I love you too. To the moon and back.
To the moon and back. Bye, everybody.
Bye.